Welcome to KCHW's Happy News. I'm Daisy Oz. In this week's show, I'll be presenting a happy news brief, then go into how anchorman Dan Harris found happiness, and finally into a feature story talking about 3 emerging insights about happiness presented at this year's 6th World Congress on Positive Psychology. The following happy news brief is from sunnyskies.com, promoting good news stories from around the world. Woman starts beer company that uses 100% of profits to feed the needy. Jackie Berglund is on a mission to turn beer into food. Her Minnesota-based brewery has been donating 100% of its profits back to the community. Jackie opened Finnegan's Brew Company in September of 2000. Through the creation of both Finnegan's SBC and its nonprofit counterpart, Finnegan's Community Fund, Berglund has championed an innovative market-based approach to addressing and raising awareness about food security in communities across the Midwest. In its 20th year of business, Finnegan's is now approaching $2 million of impact, which equates to about 2 million pounds of organic food distributed to families in need. Jackie says, "We live in the wealthiest country in the world. It's a crime that people can't meet their basic needs." And Finnegan's isn't showing any signs of slowing down. She is currently traveling the country, supporting local food banks, and now you can find Finnegan's beer in 4 Midwest states. Jackie explains, "I always wanted to leave the world a better place. I'm just hardwired that way." From a podcast, Live Happy magazine interviews ABC anchorman and best-selling author Dan Harris and how he became 10% happier through meditation to combat stress and create balance. After a meltdown on live television, ABC's News Nightline anchor Dan Harris knew he needed to make a change in how he approached his career and his overall happiness. On July 31st, Dan joins Live Happy Now, a podcast from Live Happy magazine, to share how he has learned to become just 10% happier at a time, reduce stress without losing his edge, and found self-help that actually works. Live Happy asks, "How do you find the time to meditate?" Dan says, "I prioritize a few things. I make sure I get enough sleep, enough exercise, that I get to spend time with my family, and I make sure to meditate. I try not to get overly worked up over any one thing at any one moment. I do my best to get it all done, and sometimes things fall by the wayside, and I try to pick it up tomorrow. This is where meditation is very helpful. I think in some ways, making a little bit of time to do mental hygiene usually makes you more effective because you spend less time engaged in useless rumination and worry. We spend a lot of time working on our home decor, our stock portfolios, our hair, our bodies, but most of us spend no time working on one filter we experience everything through, and that's our mind. And it's just common sense to tune the thing up." Live Happy asks, "What advice do you have for people who are hesitant to get inside their own heads?" Anchorman Dan says, "First of all, you're not alone. It's not a strange concern to have. A lot of people are worried that if they look into their own mind, they might not like what they see. It's there anyway, and it's having an impact on you whether you choose to see it or not. So your options are whether to be yanked around by it unconsciously or to deal with it forthrightly." What is a good starting practice to jump into meditation, Dan? He responds, "I'm a type A person, and when I do things, I expect a certain result. I expect a win. But you don't really win at meditation. It's not that kind of endeavor. You have to go in expecting that you're going to be distracted. In most forms of meditation, you're focusing on your breath, and you're going to get lost a million times. People think that if you're getting lost, you're doing it wrong. But in fact, the act of meditation is simply to notice when you've become distracted and to start over again. And that act of failure is success. It's like a bicep curl for your brain. Every time you notice you're worrying and you start again, that is a bicep curl. It changes your brain. It may feel like failure, but it isn't. Listen to the full interview with Dan on Live Happy Now podcast at livehappy.com. In the podcast, you will learn how people with all types of personalities have the ability to meditate, how just few minutes of meditation a day can help alleviate stress, apps you can use to help your meditation. My feature story is about the 3 emerging insights about happiness. Researchers are exploring how everyday thoughts and feelings contribute to our well-being. Last month, researchers from over 60 countries gathered at the International Positive Psychology Association's 6th World Congress in Melbourne, Australia, to share cutting-edge insights on the science of well-being. Their findings added depth and complexity to our understanding of the major keys to a flourishing life. 3 emerging insights presented at the World Congress include the up-and-coming pathways to well-being that positive psychology is just beginning to explore, and the exciting potential they hold. The first is positive solitude. Researchers have repeatedly found that social connection is one of the keys to happiness. And for many of us, feeling separated from other people translates into a sense of loneliness and disconnection. But does solitude have to be a negative experience? Can time alone feed our well-being? Researchers at Russia's National Research University have investigated the phenomenon of positive or productive solitude in contrast with the more unpleasant experience of being alone. Productive solitude doesn't occur because we feel disconnected from others. It's something that we deliberately seek out. Rather than being lonely or ruminating on negative experiences, we use the solitary time for contemplation, reflection, or creativity. People who experience positive solitude tend to feel more positive emotions, in particular the low-energy ones like relaxation and calm. The researchers found when these people do find themselves alone, they have a greater sense of pleasure and meaning, and less of a sense of void. I would like to relate positive solitude to meditation, as Dan Harris talked about. The second emerging insight is feeling active. This kind of feeling active can be compared to the feeling of excitement and doesn't refer to physical activity necessarily. In the analysis by Sarah Pressman and her colleagues, feeling active accounted for a sizable portion of the link between positive emotions and different measures of health. For men, feeling active was the positive emotion that predicted how long they would live. In other words, it doesn't just matter how physically active we are, but how active, how energetic, vigorous, and vital we feel. This is an inside-out approach to feeling active. And the third emerging insight is future-mindedness. I spoke about this before as prospection in a former Happy Newscast. As we pursue happiness, we often ponder the future and the kinds of things that will make us feel good tomorrow or the next year. Even though our predictions aren't always accurate, the simple act of contemplating the future might be a key to well-being. Social psychologist Roy Boymaster says happy and optimistic people tend to think about the future more often than their less upbeat counterparts. Thinking about the future seems to come in 2 flavors. First, we dream big and imagine fantasy outcomes. Then, we get real and come up with the pragmatic plans. Thinking about the future is useful personally and in our relationships. For example, research suggests that people whose minds tend to wander toward the future develop more concrete goals. And if you're having a conflict with a romantic partner, looking at it from a future perspective, imagining how you would think about it in 1 year from now, could lead to less blame, more forgiveness, and greater well-being in your relationship. When the process of imagining positive futures and how to bring them about goes awry, we may be at risk of mental health issues. Researchers have suggested that faulty future-mindedness, envisioning a darker future for yourself, contributes to depression, anxiety, and other disorders. For this reason, perhaps, many popular therapies such as future-oriented therapy, hope therapy, solution-focused therapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy help people improve the way they think about the future. If you want to improve your future mindedness with therapy, another option is to journal about new doors that have opened or might open in your life. This happy news story originated from Kira Newman, the managing editor of Greater Good Science Center, who partnered with the International Positive Psychology Association to produce videos and lead workshops at the 6th World Congress on Positive Psychology. I'd like to leave you with a happy quote. Happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. The Dalai Lama. I'm Daisy Oz. Thanks for listening, and I want you to be happy. If you'd like to submit an idea for my show, send me an email, daisy@kchw.org. Happy News is produced at the KCHW studios in Chewelah, Washington. Our theme music was provided by John Bartman.